And so what ends up happening is style comps have the least.
I also think that because I've judged SPL, you're up there trying to be objective and someone does something sick and you're trying not to jump out of your seat, but you do.
Can you recall any times where you feel like you personally got it wrong?
Yeah.
Do we want to do a confession?
Yeah. Should I name people's names?
Yeah, do your thing. Yeah,
okay. We see a lot of lines where it's like big flip, land, stop, gallop or roll, and that is just, it's poor composition.
Yeah. And I think I've been pretty open with my hate about this before, but maybe not as strong as I should be.
Let them have it.
When's the last time you did a formal competition?
NAPC 2019.
Really? Oh yeah, because the one I think your formal competition before that would have probably been an Origins one.
Yeah.
Like the Spring Classic that we got coming up.
Which I won. I remember I was stoked, yeah. Remember I domed myself on the speed course.
I do remember.
I didn't face plant, but it felt like I did. And then I went the next day and then I won and I was stoked.
Yeah.
To be fair, there was like 3 people competing, but I was pretty stoked.
Good old local
How old was
comps.
I? 17? 17, me was real hyped about that.
Yeah, local comps. we just had a local comp up in interior BC. Mm-hmm. The Western qualifier or Western Championships for the what they're trying to make into the, or I shouldn't say trying to, are making into the Canadian Parkour League, which I'm actually not affiliated with. Maybe one day we'll get together and make it a thing. But right now we're just happy to support, and I'm happy to go to local comps because I get to participate.
Yeah,
and
which you did.
Yeah, I didn't do very well, but I keep saying that I feel that competitions are just such a great training experience.
Yeah,
I always feel like coming out of them, you get exposed to things that maybe you wouldn't like trying normally, whether it's a speed comps, even style can do that. Like the setup might be different than you're used to or that you like to do, and so you have to kind of change your line plan or whatever. But especially in skill, it's like, here's a challenge, this is how you got to do it. So I always leave knowing fully well what I suck at. And
right.
And the training motivation is there. And then the other thing that happens is I often feel like competitions, I usually end up doing at least one jump or one challenge or one move that normally I would shy away from even trying. But because it's like now is the time, it gets done. So I guess what I would say to anyone watching is if you have a local comp coming up nearby, and maybe if you're even stuck in your progression or direction with parkour,
go try it.
I don't think there's a better thing you could do to maybe get over that hump than competing in a competition.
Yeah. Well, we were just training outside talking about how sometimes to do a challenge, you were talking the fantasy. My family's over there, they're gonna die. I gotta go save them. I gotta do this challenge. I feel like comps put you in that mindset immediately, You're like, I have to try this.
Yeah. I don't know if they put me in the mindset of my family's going to die and I have to do this jump to save them, but yes.
Well, going back to 20. Okay, so I think I've done 2 formal, I'll say legit competitions with both trying to qualify for NAPC, both of which I did not qualify for. But the first time around, which would have been 2018, I guess, I had never done a double side flip onto hard before. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'm going to do it. And I did it, hurt my toe, got up, was like, I have to do it again. Did it again, didn't do very good, and then I limped home. And then the next year, which that's not a great effect of the comp thing, but I was also 17, so it's fine. I was fine in a week. The next year was Congainer, which I had only ever done on mats and stuff, and that was like the move for me when I was younger. And I remember it was the finals of the qualifiers to get into NAPC. And I was like, I have to do a Congainer. It's like, it's the moment. It's like, if I do it and it gets me in, great. It's because of the con gainer. So I remember doing it, and then when I watched back the line, I fully stopped for 10 seconds because I'm trying to hype myself up to do it. But then I did it, and that was cool. And then I didn't get in, but I was stoked because I did a con gainer. So it works. Go do a comp. It's fun.
It's funny because I think there's two ways to take this too, right? Like when I've been doing parkour for a minute, and back in the day, and I think still to this day, a lot of people will talk about the negatives of competition being exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. But it's almost just like a mindset shift of, is this a positive thing that this event, this circumstance is helping will yourself to do something, or is it a negative thing? And it's almost like it depends on the result, you know?
Yeah, it does depend on the result. But then again, it's like, I don't know, it's true of every sport and every competition, I feel like, where somebody pushing themselves to do a move, if they really want to do it, will happen regardless. So does the competition kind of act as like a catalyst for that? Sure. If they mess themselves up, is it the competition's fault? No. Because, it's like, if they were, woke up that day and were like, I'm going to do this hard move, and then they messed themselves up on it, it's their fault. And I think that's still true in a competition setting.
Yeah, ultimately it's hard to make a solid argument in either direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because it does depend. It's very easy if someone gets hurt really bad at a competition to say that without competitions this wouldn't happen.
It's a chicken or egg kind of question.
It's almost like, do competitions kill people or do people kill people?
Wow. No one's dying. Was that your CPL experience?
No one died.
Well, that's good.
No, my experience is, like I said, it's a positive one. Not aware of anyone getting badly hurt at this one or anything. Silas got beat up. I'll say he got beat up.
He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. He felt like he was forced into this skill final.
Right. I forgot about
where he had to go head to head with someone, and this other someone. His name's Pasha, and he's quite a sendy guy, and he did this big dive roll at height.
It looked pretty big.
Silas also did it.
By the way, I was not there. I just heard about all these things.
Yeah, so Silas did this, and he said he felt like, not on the landing, but on the roll itself, he felt like something with his rib, but he seems to be okay. Yeah. And then he got a big old shinner. Yeah. He still won though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The shinner is really funny because he actually sent me the clip. Because I replied to a story where I think he just said, I don't know, I think he said like, I take these or something like that. And he just posted that and then a picture of like something completely unrelated. And I was like, did you win? What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, want to see me like eat it? Okay. Then he sent me the clip and didn't explain it, but just from watching the clip, I knew exactly what happened. Because you can just tell. Goes for a jump, remembers halfway through that you had to do a stride. Clearly going for a plyo, remembers in the air, slipped one foot, and then slipped. Yeah, but it was really funny because he sent me the clip, and then I was texting like, "Oh, were you supposed to stride?" And I was about to hit send, and then he was like, "Yeah, so we were supposed to stride." Like, that's awesome. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, it makes me think it's pretty tough to. I mean, people will win, and this won't happen to them, but it's pretty tough to win a comp and not get a little beat up.
Yeah.
And so again, this is something where you can be like, "Whoa, that sounds like a negative," but you seize in the moment to really push yourself, and I think the same could be said about trying to do like a big video project. You might get a little beat up along the way.
Push your level. It's kind of it might happen, and that's just that's part of progression in a way, though. It's part of the fun.
Part of the fun is a little bit of pain, along the way. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So you said you weren't there. I don't know if there's anything really I personally I need to touch on, but I don't.
Right. Well, I guess the biggest thing for me was hearing about a flow category as opposed to a style. which
Yeah.
seemed, I mean, because, you know, they were doing basically it was the skill speed style thing. It was kind of the SPL format, which is cool. I think that's you know, the best format, and, you know, other comps are kind of taking that format.
Well,
too,
we don't mind if people borrow. You
Well,
know?
no, it's a good format. It works. I think it's probably one of the more appropriate ways for competition parkour to work. It's just that format. But anyways, but they didn't have a style. They had a flow format, and then I was really curious why and what it ended up being, because when y'all came back, right, Colin, I think, won the youth thing, and then he was saying, he was like, oh yeah, I just did like my hardest flips and stuff. And I was like, well, that seems like it countered the whole premise of flow instead of style. But
so the why, as to the why, I actually, one of the reasons I got is that they didn't want it to necessarily have to have flips.
Okay.
Which I'm on board with, and I think
cool.
we are in
That's
a stage with freestyle comps where people assume, if you think at the highest level, I think people assume that your line has to be very flip heavy in order to be anything.
Right.
And it's just going to take, I think, someone not doing that and doing other incredible things to sort of break the mold.
Well, we can talk about a person later who I feel is currently kind of doing that.
Okay.
But
I remember like when Daryl Stingley used to compete, because he doesn't have a lot, like a collection of very like vertically difficult flips.
Right.
So that's Tom's word, vertical.
Okay.
There's basically like the progression is like, so vertical progression being like full, double full, triple full, right?
I get it. Yeah, okay.
So like he can do some dubs, but I don't even think he's ever done any in competition.
Right.
So he would do a lot of, to most people, like basic flips, but just really well placed and really like
Daryl's got
aesthetically,
style, man.
Yeah, really aesthetically put together. I actually miss seeing him compete because I felt like he was a very welcome addition there. Sometimes the courses just didn't play to him though. Yeah, and that's. I mean, it's his fault ultimately. Right. Like if you're gonna do well in a style comp, you need to be able to adapt to whatever course. But I do think like some of his signature things that he would have done on courses that would have been very hard for other people weren't always like apparent. So that is what it is.
And so that would be essentially what flow.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the CPL thing and their mission, part of it again was to encourage people to, I guess, compete without necessarily having to do flips. Right. And what they were claiming they were looking for, so this is, I can't quote them, but what they were saying they were looking for was a seamless connection and like a line that flows. And you had to go from, it's not the biggest gym, but it's a pretty big gym. We had to go from like one end of the gym to the other in both of these rounds. Okay. So Colin gets in there and he just realized. I actually told him. I said like do some Daryl shit. Okay. Like, that's what I told him. And he's like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. And so he told you just. I don't feel like he did. I think like, well, what is so we're talking about a kid who's like on our youth team and he doesn't have a. He's not
got
really
side
a flip
flips
guy.
for days.
Yes, that's his. Like and you know, in a couple years he if not less, I'm sure he's going to be hitting some very impressive like side pre's. Yeah, like he's well on his way. He can side flip gaps without prep. You know. Yeah.
Colin cares for lashes and sides.
It's pretty much That's it. He's got a pretty jump too, but his knees are always bugging him. Yeah, because he decided to grow like 1.5 feet. Yeah. He's a tall dude. He's got that unfortunate case where you're like 6 feet tall and you're only like 15 years old and you grew a lot, and I don't think your tendons and joints have like caught up. Yeah. So he's going through some growing pains, but I think he'll be okay. Yeah. Anyways, so he tried to do just that. He tried to do like we talked about it, and I gave him some advice on that. I said just keep it simple. Try to make it all fast. Try to like cover ground, right? And funny enough, we were talking about another youth team kid, Andrew. Yeah. Andrew can side flip. I don't think he's done them on hard yet. Andrew is much more of a speed skill specialist, and he has great vision for lines with like just given his limited skill set. Like he and I say limited, it's not really limited, just limited in that he doesn't do like flips or tricks, but he has great vision for lines. Like we're going to be putting out a youth team edit pretty soon. Yeah. And I feel like he was when I'm editing this thing, his lines are the easiest to cut and put in because they're fast and like they just go. Whereas some of the other kids, I'm like, oh, I have to cut this and put it right at the part of the song. I could drop his lines anywhere and they just work. Right. Anyways, there was one point during the competition where we put a coach jersey on him and he was out like coaching Colin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
He's
got the eye.
That was a cute moment. Anyways, on the topic of it, so you were curious about.
Well, right. Okay. I was curious
what the reason was. Yeah. That's what we got.
Because it's interesting to me, and this I guess can segue into a Project Underground talk, but it's weird that you need a new word to like incentivize less tricks, because style never meant flips, to me at least. I think in competition, because especially like early comps, if you look at like the first few art emotions or whatever, it was all the setups were just descending. Yeah. So the natural thing was like, okay, well, we just got to do flips and stuff to get down because that's cool. And I think the sport was kind of looking at other sort of freestyle kind of action sports and just trying to copy that and somehow adapt it to parkour. But nowadays, when you talk about style, I think few people in their heads think, oh yeah, flips. I think your first thought would be going to more just creative movement choices, right? So, or maybe that's just my like bias, but yeah, I think needing a new word, being like, oh, this is flow comp, just makes it sound way less cool. You know, it's like, oh, it's flow comp. Like we're just gonna take it slow, be nice and flowy. It was just something that I found weird personally, but.
USPK actually were tempted to do the same move.
Really?
To open up like split. We got this criticism for SPL back in the day. Yeah. Also, where the point being made was that the traditional parkour has two categories. Right. And the like style or freerunning parkour has one category. And my counter argument was speed's not parkour. That was my counter.
Wild.
Whoa. I feel like it's its own third category.
Whoa. That's crazy. Well, I can see where you're coming from.
Well, it could be traditional parkour, but again,
watch a winning run from SPL, and people are not doing traditional parkour things.
Yeah, like the skill comp is traditional parkour, style comp is style, and then speed is kind of its own thing because people don't we don't go out on the street. Like, you know, we were just doing a session today, and it's like if anything, if we're doing a line, we're kind of combining style and skill. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a speed. It's like someone at one point, I can't remember who coined this, and it never stuck, but I really liked it. Is they came up with a word and they for that when you're trying to, you know, do the cool things, but like do them fast, right? Right. This fasthetic.
Fasthetic.
I can't remember who to credit for that.
The fasthetic.
I think it was an American athlete. Anyways, it never really stuck, but I did appreciate that one. Yeah. And again, if we go back to someone like Daryl Stingley, like he's
got the fasthetic.
If not like the king of
of fasthetic.
Yeah. So it is something that I think is going to continue to get circled back to. And part of the reason is, well, at least in the SPL format, you got to compete in 3 rounds. We now have a combo round instead of 2 lines. Combo hasn't really played out the way we've wanted to in the last couple of years. We have a change to the format coming into this season, which anyone who ends up paying attention to the competition coming up at Acton 3 in Montreal, they're going to see that. But it does eventually go into big trick, which is big scary for for most people. And so what ends up happening is style comps have the least amount of registration,
Yeah.
Because I think for people it feels like there's the highest barrier to entry. Because to compete in, first of all, speed has the lowest barrier to entry.
Right.
It's not the most, I think skill's getting more signups now than speed. But speed has the lowest barrier to entry because if you can complete the course, you can participate.
Yeah. Right.
Skill has a more of a barrier because you actually have to be able to do difficult traditional moves.
Yeah.
And then style ends up feeling like the highest barrier to entry because people feel like I need to be able to land at least one flip, meaning I got to be able to take off the ground, rotate, invert, and then land back on my feet.
Yeah.
Which, I would say it's not even an argument that it takes longer to learn how to do that than it does the other two. Again, running a course,
right?
Most particularly if it's like a regional competition, most people can figure the way around unless there's like forced gap jumps or like ascents.
Yeah.
Right. But even at the regional or local competitions, you'll see climb ups with elbows and knees and stuff. So like anything goes. It's fun.
Right.
And then skill. Well, if you can do like a precision jump or a little swing, or, we usually try to cater it so that people can participate. But style is just open-ended, and it's weird because it shouldn't be, because it's open-ended. You should just be able to go in and be like, I'm just gonna do a line of whatever.
Yeah.
It hasn't caught on yet though.
Yeah, I think there's maybe also an aspect of that where style is maybe a more vulnerable way to compete, if that makes sense. Where skill, it's like the move you're doing, you've been told what to do. Speed, there's a course, and whatever route you choose, you're running the course. Style is, here's some stuff, come up with a thing. And maybe people feel very like you're all the eyes are on you. And I think it's very hard to move well and like aesthetically. I think that's a very hard thing to do. So maybe if you feel like you're not quite there yet, then the barrier, I guess, is high. But I don't think that's a bad thing. It is what it is. It's like I shouldn't be able to rock up to, like a skiing comp or whatever and just be like, oh cool, I've only been doing it for like a year. Let me just jump into this, competition where eventually I'm going to compete against, some of the world's best. I think that's fair. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's also local comps too where it gets tricky. I was really happy this year when we did our Tricks for Treats competition for Halloween, which is kind of it's a battle format head to head, but we had quite a lot of kids involved. I had hoped to get more adults, but even for that one, you see, we changed the name because for that one we specifically have a no flips division.
But that's also because percentage-wise, people who train at this gym, it's like who can do flips, who can't. If it was, especially if the criteria was like, I don't know, it was overall impression, right? The lines. So it's like, cool, if you can do a line with 2 flips that you stomp, the overall impression, like to beat that with no flips is going to be real hard. Because you have to do some sick stuff. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know if there's an answer. I think people just got to deal with it.
Okay, so Project Underground.
Okay, right, yeah. So moving to there. The reason I'm thinking that the term flow is irrelevant is because look at men's who won. Was it Franzen? It was Kevin Franzen, and his line. The final one he did was what? There was flips wise. I don't even remember what he did. He did this cart to roll thing, not a traditional flip, cool, and then he maybe did like the kip side or whatever they're called, off a bar. And otherwise, it was all just super creative connections and different kind of moves. But I don't think one of them, apart from that side, was a traditional flip. And he won. And it's because it flowed. Right? But
I just came as a devil's advocate, just kind of came to my head here. Who wasn't at the competition?
We all know.
Well,
Let's say it
no,
together.
I don't
3,
even-
2, 1, Ellis.
Yeah, no, I actually was gonna extend that to okay. So you have Ed Scott there.
Yeah.
Ed Scott also he's the all around goat. You know.
He is the all-around go. I would say his approach to style is pretty traditional in terms of what style is.
Yeah, you say Ed, the total package.
Yeah.
He ended up slipping up on his line,
Which
you
was
know.
So wild.
Yeah.
Because that slip, like, yeah. And it wasn't even like that bad. But it was a back full like gap, and then he just overdid it, and then somehow caught himself like in a window, didn't fall that hard, and then kept going. That's so impressive. That was so impressive.
Yeah.
And then finished his line and out of anger. Is what he said. It's great.
But what I was gonna say is, who wasn't there? Okay, so yes, we can say Ellis Torhall, who, had he been there, would have done a very high level flip heavy line.
Yeah.
And it's tough to see Ellis going to a competition and not winning.
Yeah. Right now, yeah.
I'm really not trying to take away anything from like Kevin Franz or anything like that, but it's just a tough world to think. Like, you'd have to really be favoring Kevin's creativity and flow over, because Ellis will flow together his things too.
It's true. It's a different kind of flow, but yeah.
But who else wasn't there? Kaylin Chan.
Yeah.
Sei Asakura.
Yeah.
The rest of the Japanese guys.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of high level competitors that have very flip heavy styles that tend to rule the podiums when they arrive.
Yeah, that's true.
So yes, the person who won had a flowy line, very very flowy, very nice line, very great. I loved it, but had the lineup of competitors been different, I don't know if it really goes the same.
That is fair. That's fair, I guess.
I don't think you're wrong in saying we don't need another word.
Yeah.
But I guess that would be the counter argument. I think what stops people from competing in style and makes them think that it has to be this is some of the names I just threw out there.
Yeah.
And even on the ladies' side too.
Yeah.
You got Nora Georgina, you got Elise Bickley, you got Nene. Right, those are your
Rachel.
Well, Rachel does more of an all-around sort of creative flow, right? But I think the other three are definitely more on the we're gonna do some really difficult flips in our lines.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird because style encompasses all of that. So I guess it is tricky, but
yeah.
I don't know. Keep calling it style.
And so, speaking of the subject of freestyle, and I'm hoping you're up for it again this year. I think we're trying to have some consistency now with this. But you've had the opportunity to judge two SPL 1 and SPL 2.
Yeah.
And I think in both scenarios, though, you were the only repeat judge. So and you'll be doing the three-peat this year. Full-time job now.
It's a scary job, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. First of all, you're the center of criticism when it's all over.
Yeah.
So I find
it kind of funny. I don't think it. What I actually do is I love doing this after SPL's over. I'll go because everybody posts their runs, and then I just go read the comments. And I just read people trashing me, and I'm like, damn, all right, that's fine.
I remember when we put out your video.
Yeah.
Desani, if you haven't given it a watch yet.
God, right.
You were saying part of your stoke of putting out a video was finally people are going to see that I can actually do stuff, and I'm not just some random guy on in a judge seat.
Then again, not to say that the level of anything I did in that video is on par.
I mean, arguable. I think it definitely shows that you know what you're looking at.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's some reasons for things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
But it definitely shows that, like I said, that you know what you're looking at. Cool. So.
Yeah.
We're trying to say what's that? Okay, so you get lots of criticism.
Yeah. But it's fun. I enjoy it. It's so stressful, but it's I really like doing it. I think I also think that because I've judged SPL twice, I think that's why when I hear like flow category, it kind of irks me. Because even last year, SPL 2 judges, we were having a big discussion about kind of, I guess, like the safety of competitors when it comes to style. And with the two other judges there were, like a big one was watching Rene doing triple full off that, like the high ledge. And they were like, you know, as she's prepping to do it, they're both like, oh, she should just stop. Like, this isn't smart. Like, it's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. And I totally get where that's coming from, but at the same time, like, but that's the sport. And she's pushing herself, and it's awesome. And then she landed it, and it was sick. And, like, where her ankle's probably in a bunch of pain, but that's not going to stop happening in sports. You know, nobody's going to, I don't think we'll ever get to a point where somebody's like, you know, you're this close to stomping, you know, a first or whatever, you're not going to let a little bit of pain stop you. So, I don't know, it's just interesting to me when people are like, oh, style, like there's this whole dangerous aspect to it. I'm like, yeah, but so, you know, so is every other thing we're doing here. And if, I don't know, it's just weird that we can't give the athletes that responsibility. You know, but I mean, but again,
kind of what we opened with, right?
Again, it's the chicken and the egg thing. Of, you know, is it the comp or is it the athlete? But no, it's cool. I like judging. It's fun. I felt that the first year, so SPL 1 judging was very, I don't want to say random, but it kind of felt like there wasn't a structure to it. If that made sense. The second year was a lot better, and there was a lot more things to look out for. And a big one was we ranked. We ranked like line connections and incorporated that into the difficulty kind of aspect of scores. And I remember talking with judges, and we were almost weighing connections like as more important than actual difficulty of flips, because we see a lot of lines where it's like big flip, land, stop, gallop or roll, right, which we were talking about before. Other big trick, stop, gallop or roll, and it was the composition was the term we were using, and that is just, it's poor composition. So I think it was cool to see that shift, because it actually applies to parkour a lot more, I feel, because parkour isn't a stop and go sport, it's a continuous thing. So that was cool. That was interesting. That's why also when I see somebody like Kevin winning, I'm like, yeah, sick. Because other people are like, agree that that's more important. I'd rather see a well put together line than 4 big tricks with, you know, rolls in between them.
I mean, that's why we made the other category.
Yeah.
The other, or not category, but a round of competition for that. Two questions for you.
Sure.
Do you like being, I guess, having the like influence on the result?
Not really. Like, yes, and I think that we do a decent job. I think that the podiums that have happened were correct, but it's hard to say. Like, I enter a competition. Like, I clearly am biased towards, you know, I've been talking about connectivity this whole time. I'm clearly biased towards that. That's clearly what I prefer to see. I try to turn it off a little bit when I'm judging, but it's hard. Like, in SPL 2, there was, like, Kevin competed. By far my favorite line that I saw, but we scored him, like, he didn't podium.
When you say we scored him, do you recall scoring him higher relative to other, because we averaged the scores.
Right,
it's not like you.
I don't recall. I don't remember, but it was my personal favorite line of the whole event was Kevin's line. That was my favorite. But then when I was like, okay, I have to turn off the bias and actually look at what we were trying to do it, then it's like, okay, well, he missed out on some stuff, you know. But yeah, no, I don't really like that. You know, especially because it's a 3-day event, trying to, you know, after day 1, you have it's very easy to be like, cool, this person's in the lead. And then, you know, the second day happens, and then you come to the day 3, you know, and you're like, oh, the podium should be this. But because we scored day 2 like we did, it's not going to end up being that way. And that's very, like, really frustrating.
Yeah, it's a bit of recency. I think we end up being only in style, really. We end up having this like sort of like recency bias, where like whoever does the best in big trick, everyone thinks should win. But like and then you know put out the argument of like, well, this person did really well in like these 2 rounds, and don't we want it to be
which is also
all
what's
around,
really
right?
cool about this format is that it doesn't just say, oh cool, you got big tricks, sweet, you win. That's what I think is really awesome about it, but at the same time is also frustrating as a judge, because I have a clear idea of who should be winning, and then by the 3rd day come big trick, that might not be actually who ends up winning anymore, which isn't what really happened last year. There's just some scores that you're kind of like, but should Ellis have won? Yeah, you did some messed up stuff, you know. So yeah.
My follow-up question, which you kind of alluded to there, was: can you recall any times where you feel like you personally got it wrong?
Yeah.
Do we want to do a confession?
Yeah. Should I name people's names?
Yeah. Do you think? Yes.
Okay.
This is a very open book show.
Okay. Ed Scott did you dirty, man. Sorry. Last year, I personally feel, in hindsight, I think he was on top for a long time, and I think there was a shift in, maybe this is just how I feel, but in general, like the community's view on what is good style, I think has shifted a lot in the past few years, and I think that's hitting comps now, where the kind of traditional way of doing it it's less fresh, for lack of a better word. You know, it's not progressing the sport, even though it is, but it maybe just doesn't feel like it is as much compared to somebody who's doing a lot of like new school kind of moves and variations on flips. I feel that was maybe not the greatest. What was last year's podium? It was Ellis, Say and
Kalen.
Kalen. Yeah. Ed maybe should have been on there because I think he was 4th.
He was 4th.
Yes, Ed maybe should have been on there.
Yeah, I felt like his it's kind of muddied the waters with style for the last 2 years. Yeah, and I'll take a lot of responsibility for it, but it's the combo round.
Yeah, combo round. That one is really.
So one thing you touched on earlier was SPL1 not feeling as organized.
Yeah.
For a combo round, it sure as heck wasn't.
Yeah.
I actually felt like the scores, some of them leaned high, but ultimately the people that moved on and the placement was okay.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, there was more preparation and more organization for SPL2, and I disagreed a lot with the combo scores.
Interesting.
I think organizer, spectator.
Yeah, I think with the combo round in particular, I was with Chris and Florian, were the other 2 judges. I don't think we were nearly harsh enough. I think we were like, oh, it's combo round, which should mean like 2-3 connected moves, and if they're not connected, that should be seriously like punished. And that didn't happen. That did not happen at all, right? Because it's hard not to get hyped too, right? You're up there trying to be objective, and someone does something sick, and you're trying not to jump out of your seat, but you do, and you know.
Yeah, when you talked about doing Ed dirty, that's the round.
Yeah,
because he gets it. Yeah. All of his combos were quick.
Yeah.
There was it's not just this again, this word flow and connection.
Yeah.
It really, if we're trying to grade flow, it really is about speed.
Yeah.
It really is about how fast one thing happens to the next thing, because that ultimately is like, if you think of the flow greats, Fosky. It's fast.
It is fast.
It's fast. True. Every single thing pops into the next thing.
Yeah.
It's seamless. I feel like he got it, and he wasn't rewarded for it because his maybe some of his move choices weren't as spicy as some other competitors, but then they also didn't make them really into combos the way he did.
Yeah, and that's where, in terms of judging style, it gets really hairy, is how do you decide what is harder? Is a big thing, right? If someone does like you know, what's harder, a triple full off of a big block, or like an extremely variated, like single even, or like a thing with an unfull afterwards or whatever. It's how do you decide which is technically harder? It's really tricky. It often comes down to how clean was the landing, which to me, I really personally dislike the whole, hands touched, it didn't count. I hate that rule because that feels so gymnastics to me. And I'm not trying to be anti-gymnastics, but it's like a whole aspect of what makes parkour look so cool to me is that it's kind of raggedy sometimes. And then when we're so focused on super clean landings, it's like when it comes to a competition, yeah, that shows control. So it should get scored higher, but it's kind of like, ugh.
This also only kind of affects big trick.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember SPL1, Kalen, I don't know what to call it, but it's basically like a Kong gainer, but like
with the heel tap.
With he opens up and heel tap. Like no one else is doing that.
Yeah.
No one else is doing that. And
we did him so dirty. We did him so dirty. I forgot about that.
So, well, he ended up getting, he ended up going again and again and again to try to not hand touch or not, whatever. I think the first one, maybe he under-rotated. Yeah. The second one was like the best one.
Yeah, it's like...
and he had a forward hand touch, but like it should... And I remember someone who, maybe they were a little drunk, but someone who doesn't compete in style came up to me and was like making the argument. He said, this is ridiculous. His argument was, if I was teaching a kid how to do a backflip, a back tuck, and they touched their hands, he's like, did they learn back tuck? And I'm like, whoa. This is not the same thing at all, man. Like Kalen was doing a trick that we didn't even know if it would work. Yeah. It's not the same as a back tuck. It's not the same as a back tuck where I have seen thousands of these. I know it works. I know what a clean one looks like. Yeah. I know what a completed one looks like. But this whole idea of he touched his hands a little bit, therefore it's not as we have to dock him a lot. It's like I don't know.
I think the biggest kind of pit you get into being a judge is you're so hyper fixated on mistakes. And those get so amplified because the level is so high that it's not about who's doing it better, it's about who's doing it worse, if that makes sense. And I think that when it comes to things like hand touches, when it's a move that is so completely just years ahead in terms of, we had no idea if it would work, and he's making it work, but then you see a hand touch and you're like, oh, but he didn't land it clean. So then that not clean landing becomes more important than how insane the trick was. And I think that is a pit that I found myself falling in, because you're like, I'm a judge, I have to judge. But it's hard to just kind of turn that off and reward somebody for just being so insane for doing something like that. So I remember looking back on that score and being like, wow, that was way too low. The whole 9 club thing, where I don't even know if it made it in. I don't.
Tom would know.
Tom would know.
Well, he oversees a lot of the documenting of scores and has a good memory for it, so he'd be able to.
But I don't even remember if it made it in, and it definitely should have. Right. Yeah. So I think that's what's super tricky with judging, right? And if we go to last year's big trick, the two main dope ones were Say's cork, triple cork across a gap with a big drop.
Off of a weird takeoff.
Off of a horrible takeoff. Right after I went and stood up there and was like, dude, I don't even want to jump down here. And then Ellis trying to do a double flyaway pre. And I remember having a lot of discussions afterwards with friends, people here. We're all like, I don't know if I agreed with the way you scored and blah, 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 and that's fair, and people have different opinions. But I remember when we were looking at that in particular, you're trying to imagine what's harder, and then it became who did it worse, too, kind of thing. Yeah. Well,
only additional categories too is not categories, but in the written, we have a 1-page document explaining how style is judged.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it again.
It's currently not published, but it will be published on SPL at some point this year.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talk about are basically like skills that are new.
Yeah, progression.
Progression is the word we use. So skills that are new. And
I'd have to look at it. I would, because I would forget it as soon as the event's over.
That what Say found and did would lean a bit more into that like obstacle interaction, and like he has more to deal with on the setup. What Ellis is doing is a high bar move. Yeah. And then the only other added element is he has to get distance for the pre. They both kind of landed in the middle of their boxes for. I don't even know how it would be so crazy to like stick an edge out of a double flyaway. Like what even? But it is like a tough toss up. But the thing is, like, what were they? They were both 9s, and they were both like 9 point somethings.
Yeah.
So what
Say's was higher than Ellis's, and I think that's correct. Me personally, is it harder to stop twisting this way than this way? Yes. Especially coming out of a triple. Is it also the setup, like you're saying, was that harder and more technical? Yes. And the only way that Ellis could have like come close score-wise for me was if he actually pre'd it. If he actually pre'd it, that's messed up. That's crazy. But otherwise, it's like you said, and not to downplay what he's doing, but you're like, cool, you did a high bar move that you're extremely good at, and then you landed on a block. It was sick. But then you have the other one, which was like, So anyways.
He still won the whole thing.
So. He did still win the whole thing, which was very much deserved.
I think the difficult thing there was that Say got a little lucky in the combo round. Yeah, and he's someone who previous year didn't make it through that round. He's a great character, so I'm happy for him.
He's so cool, man.
Okay, there's something that I want to move on from the judging talk, but there's something that we kind of touched on a little bit, and so part of it is like the hand touch thing, but part of it is like flow and lines, and I think I've been pretty open with my hate about this before, but maybe not as strong as I should be.
Let him have it.
It still happens, but we were just looking at Project Underground lines, and I actually didn't see a whole lot of it. There's a little bit of it. But one of the things that I feel like is ruining freestyle is a traditional parkour move, the shoulder roll. The misplaced shoulder roll. In fact, I saw a really high-level line posted that had a cartwheel followed by a shoulder roll. Yeah. And it's this thing where, like, I don't think it looks good. Comment below if you think it does, and try to catch me up here, because I am getting a little old. But it's this sort of and we looked at Franzen's line. Yeah. And both of them, not one hip roll, not one shoulder roll, get a little bit of gallop action, but it's quick and felt necessary. Yeah. And I think that's actually the word that I'd like to use is like necessary. So if you are doing any type of gainer type move, or even front flip, there's a way to come out where you're chest forward, and perhaps it's intentional, or perhaps it isn't intentional because of the amount of rotation and force you're dealing with, where the shoulder roll really works. And if it happens quickly, it looks very necessary and it flows together the line. Cartwheel to roll, what are we doing? Cartwheel to gallop, any of that stuff, what are we doing? I think there are some athletes that pull out the hip roll pretty well, particularly out of like twisting moves. I think twisting moves have really tortured a lot of freestyle athletes over the years, because they get so used to, like, as you were saying before, like sticking their corks, sticking their twists, that as soon as they're trying to put it into a line, and it's in the middle of the line, they do it. And I for a while I would say, like, you shouldn't do a twist move unless it's at the end, because then you can stomp it and then it's cool. But if you do it midline and you stomp it, then you can't keep your connection going. But I get so offended whenever I see the shoulder roll again and again, just as a means to, like, cover ground instead of taking like a single step.
And again, I think it is that comes from this like obsession with connectivity. But the ironic thing is that when you stop, you land, take an extra step, you're like leaning back, and then go to roll. That just destroyed your connectivity.
Because it was part of the plan. Or even without the step back, if there's just any pause before a roll happens,
it just looks bad.
Or even a gallop, like putting your hands down and or ground Kong or any sort of any kind of these like floor connected I don't know, but like floor movements that are intended to keep your just momentum going
they're
in a direction.
As like a transition into your next trick. But if your transition doesn't lead one thing into the next, then it wasn't a transition. It was just a roll.
Or filler or whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of athletes that I will see put together style lines, and I'll see like 3 rolls.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, what are you doing? Like they'll land it perfectly and then put their hands down to roll or gallop on the floor or whatever it is. And if if the speed isn't there, it just really doesn't work.
I feel like it's almost a misinterpretation of what flow is.
100%.
Which is, right, it's not move is flowy. It's when you do something and then you just keep your momentum going. So if we go back to when we were talking about Kevin's thing at Project Underground, he's just running in between stuff and it looks great. It's awesome. It looks sweet. Right? There's no stopping, and I don't think style competitions should deduct points on people for running in between tricks, right? Because what that does is then it forces, which is like the whole fig thing, which is, you ran from here to here. That wasn't connected, but that's BS. It's like it's less connected when you're just spamming shoulder rolls and cartwheels and gallops, and they're not even nice cartwheels, you know. People are doing the tuck knee, right?
So much of it is about the course, like how dense it is.
Yeah.
If you have a dense enough course where you finish one move and immediately there's another structure to engage with, there's going to be less of that happening. But also sometimes it's like the expected run time. Yeah. So I think people still get in their heads that like longer is better, and it never is. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is actually what we were leaning on before, which is this idea of like throwing your hardest tricks into a line instead of maybe movements that make more sense. Yeah. I think a lot of athletes will enter a competition. They will get onto the course. They will realize that their favorite move will work at this one spot. Yep. 100%. And there's nothing else they can do with it. Yep. And that's where a lot of this crap comes in. Is just like, okay, I did this really difficult move here, and I need to get 15 feet over there somehow
to do my other
difficult move. Yeah. And so I'm just gonna fill this space and apparently I'm really judged on flow, but I never really practice putting things together quickly. I just kind of do single moves all the time. So I heard a hack I can use is if I just roll over my head a bunch of times until I get over there.
Don't look good. Stop.
Stop. It's and the problem is I think we're gonna stay in this lane until the one, it's not really so much of a problem, but there is this idea where like again lines have to be super flip heavy. Yep. And so I think until you have like high level competitors like podiuming or like even winning, doing more of a variety, that'll start to change people's perception. And then the other thing is just our definition of what flow is, of what connection is, needs to be changed, and perhaps even I would almost rather we were talking about the fig example. We won't do this, but I just thought it'd be so funny if we made like an SPL standard where you got docked points for rolling, but if you run, you got running is 1 point and then rolling is 0.
Is 0? Yeah, that's hilarious.
And it's like out of 100 or something.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know. It's seeing an athlete come up with a style run and that includes rolls and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch what that particular athlete does on a regular training day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're completely two separate things.
Yeah.
And that I think is what the core of the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that let's call it street style parkour and competition style parkour have this weird disconnect where competitions don't reflect what's happening in the community. So, right, if you kind of get what I'm saying. And I think that's the core of the issue, is that there's some weird thing happening in between somebody on their regular training sesh or filming for a video project, being like, I'm going to do this hard style line. And then you bring that to a competition setting where there's been setups built. And I don't know, it seems like there's some sort of mentality switch that happens where it's cool, I'm not going to do how I normally train parkour. I have to do it how the competition wants me to do parkour. And I think that's where the problem is that people need to stop thinking that. And I feel like style will be a lot cooler, a lot more varied in terms of like movement choices and trick choices, and overall just nicer to look at, I think.
Well, as much as I don't want to. I don't want to blame the culture. I don't want to blame the athletes. I want to blame the competitions. I want to put the blame on us, because ultimately I think it's going to take either a, not punishment, but like it's going to take rewarding one thing and then docking the other thing. Because we've named him Ellis the Great. Does stupid shoulder rolls in some of his lines. I said it. Okay. I can call him the greatest of all time, when also say that some of the stuff he does is whack. It's allowed.
Can't always be perfect.
But he does them sometimes in his lines, and it would be this interesting thing. And I said, like, we're not going to actually do it. We're not going to dock points.
It
for
would
doing,
be
like,
interesting
shoulder rolls. But it's like, if he does a line and everything's perfect, and then there's like two shoulder rolls that are like really out of place, and he doesn't get a perfect score. And he comes out and says, like, why didn't I get scored more? And it's like, oh, well, because like these were not really thoughtful connections here. You just kind of did this. It would kind of take something like that. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be, if it does happen, it just needs to be like a reflection overall of everything, and perhaps some videos and propaganda need to be thrown out there to more than a podcast with limited viewership.
Or we need a new top-level athlete to just show up out of nowhere, just not the greatest at flips, but just like oozing style, to just come in and just win style comps. And then people will be like, oh.
Does that person exist?
Find out at SPL3. I don't know.
Yeah, Tim Champion, I don't think he ever posted it. Tim, by the way, he has so many things on his phone that are crazy good that he doesn't post on his story or as a post. He just kind of saves them, and I think if he runs out of stuff, they turn up, because he only puts his best stuff on Instagram. Anyways, he showed me a line. I don't think, maybe he did post it, but I don't think he did. Anyway, he showed me a line where it has 3 swings in it.
Okay.
One of them was a lache pre over our foam pit.
Okay.
Which is not an airbag, but that's a 14-foot gap.
Yeah, it's good.
To fly away pre over.
Oh, he fly away pre'd over.
Yeah.
Okay. Did he actually pre?
Sorry, did I say lache?
Yeah.
So fly away pretty close to the edge, but like it was part of the line, so it was mid-line.
Yeah,
right? But yeah, we're talking about a 14-foot gap, a flyaway pre. He showed me it, and he was like, what would this score in style? And I was like looking at it, I'm like, probably like a high 8. And so it's just like, it could happen, like he could be the one.
Tim could be the one. The skill champ.
5-time skill champion turns style. Yeah. Because he's the type, too, that he just has, some of his more bigger glaring skill sets are his swing ability. Yeah. You could probably put in his tack back or cat back ability in there. Yeah. And if the course fits, he could put in some big moves that no one else could do.
Yeah.
And if he's able to do all the other things, I think that would be the harder part.
Yeah.
But if you were able to do other things, then, you know.
Well, that's I think that's kind of the point I'm getting at, is if you get somebody like that, right, who maybe can't, you know, like triple twist off every single obstacle in the course, but puts together a clean, creative run, there's no reason why that shouldn't score just as high, right? If the difficulty of the connections is really high, for me personally, that kind of equates to somebody able to just huck a big flip off of something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the line that I'm speaking of, so the other he did 2 lashes in it that maybe either no one else can do or like one other person could do, you know? Particularly in the way he did them in the line. So it's like 2 lashes no one else can do, and then a flyaway pre that almost no one else can do. Yeah. And it was all like the only knock I would put on it is that it was like a bit labored.
Okay.
It was a bit like rigid and doing hard stuff, but it was a bit labored in some of the connection. Like he wasn't in a hurry. Okay. Yeah. I always hate talking about stuff like this on here because I'm not gonna. Not only does this video probably hasn't seen the light of day, it's just I'm trying to describe something.
We're picturing it.
There we go.
We're picturing Tim, the one.
Okay,
beaming lights.
So we have Tim, who is the skill goat, potential future style competitor. This is a question that Tom has asked me before, and I wanted to get your answer on it. If you could be blessed with the ability to be the best in any competition category, skill, speed, or style, what would it be and why?
Right. So I've had some time to think about this. It would be skill. Yeah. Because it wouldn't be speed because I'm just not that guy. I'm not that interested in it. Yeah, that's that. Okay. Like you said, it's not parkour.
Okay, so it comes to style
versus skill. Now style has mainly, I would say, been the style of parkour that I've mainly kind of chased the entire time I've been training. But that being said, I would much prefer being able to go out, do parkour outside, and just confidently be able to hit like technical, traditional parkour skill challenges over being the, you know, best flipper and twister or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's cooler. It's cooler. At the end of the day, it's like, yeah, do you want to be, you know, spamming scoot quads off of stuff? Or do you want to be doing some sick parkour? I'd rather sick parkour. Yeah.
Some people would rather scoot quad.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't. I was having this conversation with we were talking about youth team kids earlier with Luca. He was like, "Oh, come sesh some trips with me."
Can we just let viewers know who this kid is we're talking about?
Okay. So Luca is 12.
Yeah.
12. He's been training for
a little over a year, I think.
Little over a year. Can like scoot dub off of stuff. Super talented. Extremely hardworking. And yeah, like pretty talented with his flips. And I think his metric for success in parkour is, can I be Jaden Harris? Which is cool because Jaden Harris is a beast, right? And so that's the context. So he's asking me because one day I think I was trying like triple corks into when we had a foam pit, and I was making it around, and I was like, oh cool, I didn't know I could actually maybe do this, sweet. And then he saw that and he was like, oh, you can maybe like take it outside and land it on hard, like let's sesh it, let's do it. And the moment he said that was the moment I realized, I was like, wow, I have no interest in pushing my flips anymore. It's just gone. I was like, wow, no, I don't want to labor hours and hours and sessions over landing this flip to then not do it again, probably, you know, which is, yeah.
That's one of the hardest things, I guess, about adopting a flip style. I do think, there are people that definitely have an easier time learning flips. And there are factors such as like your ability to hip hinge. You know, real quick, Mateo, who worked on Resilient with me, So he's sitting editing one day and he's holding his knee like up to his like chin. And I was like, yo, man, like, because he skateboards. And I was like, do you ever try to flip before? He's like, no. Brought him in here and he learned the nicest front flip like really quickly. Yeah. Because he's really light and there's just no resistance to bringing that knee up. So that's a factor, how well you can tuck. Vertical jump.
Your size.
Yeah.
Your jump.
Vertical jump. I'm sure there's actually tons of like biomechanic factors that probably someone who's deep in gymnastics might be able to speak on. Yeah. But outside of that, it's like your willingness to slam while you're learning, your curiosity, and then there's just like this thing where like, okay, if you don't have all those things lined up, you're gonna have to slam 1,000 times maybe before you land something correctly the way you want to. And whereas with a lot of traditional parkour skills, it's like, oh, I can do like a little version of this right away.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I can just progress by trying to make it bigger.
So going back to your question, that realization just kind of turned me off from wanting to progress flips vertically in that way. I think now with the way I'm training, I'm much more interested in just trying to variate tricks I can already do. That is much more appealing, a lot more fun, and a lot less like mentally demanding, because it's a lot more playful to just mess around with that. And it also, it means I'm like, cool, I'm not that interested in pushing style in that way anymore. And so skill would be my choice.
Okay. But even if like you were blessed with, if I just, waved the magic wand and you could triple like say. Yeah.
Well, I'll do some,
No, but like, but you would still like. I think when we talk about being blessed with the competition category, ability of choice, it's like, do you want to be a combination of Seiya Sakura and Ellis Torhall, or do you want to be a combination of Tim Champion and Nico Van Hol or something? I feel like that was. I feel like that was like a really biased take already. Dang it. I tried.
Also, Nico is somebody who Nico Van Hol is somebody who, is typically doing more like kind of skill-based.
As soon as I said his name, I was like, no, he's way too fly. This is not going to go the way I want.
He's somebody who makes traditional parkour super stylish, and so. Yeah. Maybe that's why I'm more intrigued in skill, because I could just meld what I already can kind of do and just put it with better parkour. Yeah. So maybe that's...
And I think the skill ability comes with like the bigger jump and everything as well. Yeah. The muscles. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last thing I wanted to ask you about here. Yeah. This is kind of like the imagination of we just talked about if you were blessed with ability all of a sudden. Okay. But this is more, I'm actually curious because you had talked the other day about kind of missing being able to look at like big gap jumps and stuff, and so because we're still dealing with this ankle situation. Yep. But since that's kind of off the table right now, I'm just curious, like, what are you into, or like, what are you motivated? I guess it's not totally off the table. Yeah. But like, what are you motivated to be doing right now? What are you into?
So right now, I guess I've already touched on this, but right now I am very into, like I said, the whole idea of variations on traditional kind of moves. I think that's where I'm having the most fun right now. It's the most accessible to me and what my body is capable of doing right now. It doesn't rely on impact, so I'm safe, I'm allowed, doctor approved. But I think it's that. It's trying to basically combine smaller parkour challenges and try to kind of infuse that with the style that I've kind of developed for myself in the past year and a bit. Yeah. That's what excites me, that's what motivates me. Cool. Yeah, learning how to, I don't know, being like, oh, cool, what if I did this flip or this trick I already know how to do, but I put it in this spot?
I think the key there is like knowing how to do, because when you say like no impact, there's a lot of stuff you do, and even the stuff that I don't even think you think is maybe that difficult, where I'm like, because I don't have near the same confidence with like inversion
Right.
or rotation.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, it's either off the table or like, I'm gonna have to slam first to get on the way to learning this, or like, fair. Or it's gonna take a big deep breaths in to do.
I think I'm fortunate that I was obsessed with flips when I started, because then I didn't have to worry about it afterwards. Then I could just focus on parkour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what that says about like the ideal progression focus for someone starting out.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends what your goal is.
Well, there's so many kids, like we talk about Jules, other like local phenoms who started super young, Bodie, Finn, they all like got like this really strong base of flips when they were wicked young, and it just seems like they could just like pluck and pull from it whenever they want to. Yeah,
I think that doing that definitely makes it easier to get into the style of training that I'm talking about right now. Because if you don't have a background of tricks, how are you going to start messing around with them?
Yeah.
Right? You have to be able to do them first.
Yeah.
So.
Like one comparison I would make is like for me, sometimes a dive roll, particularly if it's like a drop dive roll, feels kind of like a front flip. In terms of, and from a mental standpoint.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It's like you're looking down at something and it's like, okay, I have to go over my head.
Yeah.
I have to go through the air.
Yeah.
You know, if we're talking something scale of like 6 feet plus with like some drop, and I'm diving forward into it. Like, you know, I have to stretch out. It's like, yep, going inverted, have to go over my head.
Yeah.
It feels very similar to how it feels for me to do like a front flip off something.
Yeah. I think
I would say that the rolls are a little bit easier, a little more easier to progress into. But
well, that's interesting though, because you saying that made me think that it's probably, if you dedicate your first few years of getting into the sport at just learning how to invert yourself, that teaches you, I should say, like, it expedites your progression in terms of body awareness. So, and I think that quickly translates into parkour, because you're already comfortable, you already know sort of what you're doing when you're going into the air. So if you're, you know, now building on bigger jumps or whatever, you're not going to have that sense of like, oh, air time scares me as much, maybe. That probably is a factor.
It's a tricky one. I used to hate this topic so much, and I've definitely opened up a lot more to it. But I remember way back in the day when there was a big like parkour versus free running type thing. This was like pre-2010, and I was definitely on the parkour side.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, admittedly, I sucked at flips. Like I was going to gymnastics gyms, like trying to do like front flips and back flips and side flips, or not even side flips, because I was really bad at those, but front flips and back flips for sure, and like wall spins and crap. And I just remember my friends that could flip. Yeah. They had like a base, would always talk about like air awareness. And I'm like, what is this made up bullshit you are talking about? Right. They would talk about, like, one of them was like, I slipped one time and I turned into a Webster. And I was like, all right, fair. There was actually I remember a moment that really changed this for me. You know Josh Brower? Yeah. Legend of the Canadian community, Josh Brower.
We love Josh.
He has a very good flip base.
Yeah.
Not the most. I think he struggled more in like the technical parkour. But one time he was working with us in the gym, and we were building some stuff, and there was sawdust caked on a lot of things. Yeah. And he did this box jump from one wall up to another one, and his feet, because it was caked with sawdust, his feet completely slipped out, and he side flipped.
Sick.
And it was like he completely slipped out, like full, both feet just shot under them, and he side flipped, and it was just like. And then he did the typical like whoa, like reaction that he would do. And I'm thinking, if that was me, I would have fought the rotation. I think that's maybe like, hopefully not, because definitely going with rotation is the answer. I think generally when you're bailing, so much of it comes down to like how relaxed you are and your ability, I guess, to slow down the moment. Like, you know, as
Yeah.
adrenaline kicks in, there's a bit of this slow motion thing happening. But I think a couple of things people will try to do is they'll try to grab things if they're falling.
That's a cool story.
But like the fact that he was just able to, because there was no way of avoiding that foot slip, like that was going to happen.
Yeah.
The fact that he was just able to pop a side flip out of it was it really got me thinking. Like I may have missed out on a skill set here that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
But it's such a like small category with like, you know, we can't pull evidence really. It's just
that's the
such
thing.
that ultimately I'm just pretty center on how I feel about it now.
Yeah.
I went from being like one way of like, no, this whole like awareness thing, I think it's mislabeled. Air awareness is like just it's a terrible label, but just rotation comfort I think is probably a better description.
Term? Proprioception.
Yeah.
Is it better?
But specific to rotation.
Yeah.
Specific to rotation.
Right.
Specific to the idea that like I'm starting to rotate. Why don't I just keep rotating?
Yeah. If I do this, I'll get my feet back under me.
When I see like Dom Bale, this happens a lot. Or like some of like the roll slams he does that are somewhere in between a roll and a flip.
Yeah.
But ultimately like better than if he had just like posted like he'd
I
break
recently
himself.
watched his video where he was talking about his injuries.
Yeah.
The one in Spain, the brick spot, the huge side pre that he just like heals and then it's not, he lands with like basically just folded into a shoulder roll, but he's fine. I think Yeah,
and I think the argument is open for as long as it takes for a variety of athletes who are good in both senses. So like someone who is really good at flipping, who is able to have brilliant saves on bails, and then someone who's not good at flipping, who also has brilliant saves on bails.
I think you can reach the same level regardless. I have a feeling that flips probably makes that happen faster, especially if I feel like if you learn that young, because then it means that it becomes instinct earlier, maybe.
Yeah, I do think like a pretty strong case can be made for just the sheer like exposure to variety.
Yeah.
Again, when I think about some of the kids I mentioned that started parkour young here, like 10 years ago, when they were 11, 12 years old, learned a variety of flips. Now they're like 20, and they just have access to all these like different skills, and like their mental is quite good. And also whenever I see them bail, they seem to find these ways out. So something like, again, definitely something to be said about the variety, and maybe you don't even have to land or learn a bunch of flips. Maybe you just need to be exposed to, because I know for me, when I was trying to learn how to do flips, again, front flip, back flip, that was it. And like very, very similar approaches every session. I never changed it up. And I remember actually trying to take when you're learning how to do like a running front flip, and it's like the more like punchy, like hands up. And I remember just trying to take this same concept to like, I'm going to do a precision and then front flip.
Right.
And you'll see this with like beginners a lot, where they'll do their running jump, and their hands will stay up. And then they'll do the front flip. That's me. But it's like I never learned to like sink into the landing and then pop out. Right? So I think it's more important, even if they're never like taking flips to outside. I think just having messing around a lot basically with them.
I think it just helps you learn how it feels to be in different positions, and that likely has an effect on making it easier to like understand what's going on when things like that happen. So you can side flip when you bail.
All right, man. Well, that was pretty good talk. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Well, someone else is going to be sitting in this chair next week.
Whoa.
But if you want Ollie back, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.